irony of the term woke is that it is designed to keep you asleep. Asleep to the reality of what's going on around you, sedated from having to do anything to fix a real problem. Woke messaging demands you obey and break faith with your heritage of freedom, but it also serves as a religion that demands little more than that obedience. So to take just one example of thousands that surround us, wokeness means you don't have to ask the hard questions about how public schools fail Black and Hispanic Americans. Just accept the narrative of systemic racism in your heart as your Lord and Savior. Just wear the ribbon, that's all.
Just don't wear the ribbon.
Who do you think you are?
Put the ribbon on.
Hey, Cedric, Bob, this guy won't wear a ribbon.
Who doesn't want to wear the ribbon?
For wealthy suburbanites, as long as you don't share the wrong article or like the wrong tweets, you can keep sending your kids to their expensive private school. No Zoom lockdowns looming for them, of course.
By the way, I would have voted for Obama for a third term if I could. Best president in my lifetime, hands down.
The performative quality of wokeness works very much like what Aldous Huxley called soma, the drug used to keep people pleasantly obedient in his brave new world. And if ever, by some unlucky chance, anything unpleasant should somehow happen, why, there's always soma to give you a holiday from the facts. Today, soma is in great supply here in America. It's been properly corporatized, with woke capitalism combining with state pressure to ensure you can find a way to feel superior to others. Just look away from the real problems and go watch a woke lady superhero. You're not one of those people, you're an ally. The sign in front of your house says it in all the right colors. Personally, I like this sign better. It's a lot older, but it has the advantage of being true. So what are we supposed to do with the knowledge that our woke leaders of the moment are using their messages to lull the willing and browbeat the stubborn into submission? How are we supposed to stand up to a brittle, corrupt leadership that seeks to force you to trade your freedom for the self-satisfaction that no mob will ever come for you? As with so many things, we can learn from the Americans who came before us. Your heritage, I remind you again, is one of revolution. The political revolution of 1860 was hard fought, and it would not have happened without a group of young men who were willing to take a stand. As historian John Greenspan wrote, a band of sleepy Gotham politicians gathered in a Manhattan tavern late one evening in 1860. The bosses ordered ale and settled into a lazy debate about the usual political topics. They cursed the Republican Party, analyzed their presidential ticket, and worried about the possibility of secession, all while getting steadily drunker in the cozy tavern. They first heard the noise around midnight. From uptown came the clash of a marching band, followed by the advancing tread of hundreds of boots on the cobblestones of the Bowery. Tipsy and curious, the insiders spilled out onto the street to join a throng of dazed New Yorkers. There they watched as large formations of young men, clad in shimmering black capes and soldiers' caps, came stomping down the middle of their island. Each bore a blazing torch, and none said a word. Pushing through the crowd, the sobered politicians shouted out, "Who are these wide awakes?" You may not know about the wide awakes, but you should. There were hundreds of thousands of them in 1860, and their organizations stretched from Maine to California. They were a militaristic fraternity dedicated to human liberty. They had banners and marches and baseball teams. They carried oil lamps, wore capes, and wielded bats. And they stumped for a rising Republican rail splitter named Abraham Lincoln. The Wide Awakes were working-class populists, mostly young men with no real power or wealth. Party bosses and political elites looked down on them, as they did Lincoln. Greenspan noted that some Republican leaders even complained about the absence of the intelligent classes in the wide awake ranks, which they claimed were made up of the mechanic or laborer or clerk. And yet he also writes, many of the movement's supporters and even some of its vociferous opponents believed there was never in this country a more effective campaign organization than the Wide Awakes. They were there at the massive rallies that supported Lincoln, acting as security to prevent the harassment of pro-liberty speakers across the country. Their symbol was a giant eye, opened to see the truth. Whether passionate abolitionists or just fed up with the out-of-touch Democratic President James Buchanan, the Wide Awakes were united under the belief that they could no longer tolerate the corrupt old order that ran the country. They were awake to the deep reality of this corruption, and they understood there could be no compromise with a regime of slavery, no looking away anymore. and the slavers feared them. One Southern senator accused Republicans of creating a Praetorian Guard to install Lincoln as president regardless of the election. The Wide Awakes campaigned for free speech, free soil, free men, and they won. But it took the courage to stand up, to organize, to take to the streets, and take a stand. There is nothing new under the sun. Today, once again, the woke want you asleep, locked down, docile, tamed, subdued. They want you to turn away from the truth and embrace a comforting lie. But it is time. It is time for all of us as free citizens to wake up. It is time to demand our leaders wake up. It is time to turn to your fellow citizens and ask them, are you woke or are you wide awake? I'm Ben Domenech, and this is the American Crisis.